Hello and welcome to Nice and Blunt. I'm Adam Riancho, and it is Thursday, October 30th. We have a game tonight in Week 9. The Ravens take on the Dolphins in Miami. Who you going to start and who you going to sit? I got a good feeling we're getting a very entertaining game tonight in prime time. The Ravens season is on the line. With Lamar coming back, you got to feel good. The AFC North is still right for the taking. The Bengals don't seem fully in it. Until Burrow's there, they're probably not a winning team. The Browns are never going to do anything. And then the Steelers are starting to crumble. We know they're probably going to max out at like 9-10 wins. Tomlin will have a winning record, but probably not more than 10. So the Ravens, really interesting. The rest of their season should be fun. But let's take a look at the depth charts before we get going. As people trickle in to the live stream, let's take a look at who is inactive and who's available tonight. So this is the Ravens depth chart, and let's zoom in just a little bit. Let's focus on offense for the moment. And basically, everyone's healthy. Like, there's really nobody on their offense that is unavailable. The Ravens are getting very, very healthy. So I don't really have anything to say in regards to their injuries. We know Lamar's playing. That's pretty much the most important thing. And in case you don't see it, let's point it out. Lamar Jackson is listed as active for tonight's game. So that's huge. That's really the only big piece of information. And then on their defense, they're also very healthy as well. Really the only significant injury would be to the backup strong safety Ardarius Washington. He is out. He is behind Kyle Hamilton though, and definitely not a household name, so I wouldn't worry about it. Otherwise, they're fully healthy across the board. Their defense is good to go. The Ravens are about to remind you the team we remember. So that's their depth chart. Now let's move on to the Dolphins depth chart. Who is healthy or not for Miami? On offense, they're mostly there, but we all know about the names that are missing. We know that Tyreek Hill was placed on IR, sadly. He is unavailable, so their offense is not as exciting. Without Tyreek Hill, it's just not the same thing. But especially without Darren Waller, their offense is extremely narrow. It's really easy to predict where the ball is going without Tyreek Hill or Darren Waller. I do not trust their tight end Tanner Connor. Their tight end Julian Hill is out. So really it's just Devon Achane, Jalen Waddle, and Malik Washington. That's where the ball is going to go. Maybe we get a vulture touchdown by Nick Westbrook-Akine, and that really pisses us off. But in general, I think you can predict pretty accurately that Achane's going to score a touchdown. If they're scoring at all, it's probably going to go to Achane. If not, goes to Waddle. And then Malik Washington scored as well last week. I do like them for some sneaky upside in DFS, but especially Achane and Waddle. That's pretty obvious. When it comes to their defense, though, there are some injuries to factor in. Mainly the big concern would be Bradley Chubb, who is questionable. I'm not totally sure if he plays, but I would assume he's good to go. Otherwise, strong safety Ashton Davis is doubtful. And then they're also possibly missing Ifitu Melifonwu, another safety of theirs. So they are banged up. Their secondary is pretty gross in the first place. They also play Storm Duck, one of their corners, on IR, but it's not like they had a good defense in the first place. So that's it for the injury report. Now let's get going with some other positional start-sit decisions. Let me pull up the graphics here on the page. Let me get everything settled, and here we go. I'm starting Derrick Henry. What a shocker. Definitely start Derrick Henry. When it comes to the Ravens backfield, Derrick Henry's the man. And while they do mix in Justice Hill a little bit, I could see Keaton Mitchell really get the bulk of carries if they are dominating this game and go to the backups in the fourth quarter. So 100% we are starting Derrick Henry. He is my running back 6 this week. And the matchup for him against Miami is actually really good. The Dolphins allow some of the highest yardage totals in the NFL in regards to opposing running back duos against them. So I would trust Derrick Henry. I think he could go over 100 yards tonight. I think the yardage is pretty much locked in for Derrick Henry this evening. A touchdown, probably safe to bet on. So I would definitely start him. A good matchup. And I think the Ravens get their mojo back. I think their offense will look good. But I'm not going to start Justice Hill. I have him at RB47, so way out of start range. Not going to press my luck, but only in garbage time would he be able to factor in. So I'm 100% starting Derrick Henry, definitely benching Justice Hill. But then when it comes to the Dolphins running backs, it's basically the exact same thing with them. I am 100% starting Devon Achane. I'd rather go Achane than Derrick Henry. I have him at 5, Henry at 6. So Achane, a lock in your lineup. The volume's locked in. The passing usage is locked in. If there's anyone scoring a touchdown for the Dolphins, it's going to be Achane more likely than not. So Achane, lock in the lineup. And then Ollie Gordon, I have at 49. And last week they did incorporate Jalen Wright a little bit. So I still prefer Ollie Gordon as the backup to Achane. He is listed second on the depth chart. But if it's a 3-man rotation, Ollie Gordon becomes even less interesting to hold on to. So bench Ollie Gordon, start Devon Achane. And then when it comes to the third string running backs, I would be benching both of them. I did not rank either Keaton Mitchell or Jalen Wright, but I only show you the top 50 on the screen here, and I actually have both of them pretty close to the top 50. I have Keaton Mitchell like at 52, 53, and then Jalen Wright is in the top 60. They do have some relevance, but in general, you're not rostering or even counting on a third string running back. That's pretty crazy. So not going to rank them, but players to keep an eye on. They will factor in a little bit if injuries happen above them. Let's move on, though, to the quarterback position for both teams. I think it's pretty straightforward, basically what you're already planning to do. If you have Lamar Jackson and you've been waiting for him to come back, I am 100% endorsing him this week. He's my quarterback number 3. I could have ranked him at number 1 above Mahomes and Allen, but I feel like that matchup is going to be really entertaining and more likely a shootout in Buffalo this week. So I'll have that marquee matchup at 1 and 2 with Mahomes and Allen above Lamar, but it's not like the Dolphins defense scares you. Lamar could definitely put up 45 fantasy points and be the QB1 overwhelmingly. So a lock in your lineup, you know you are starting him, but coming off of the hamstring, that's the reason I put him below Mahomes and Allen. Maybe he doesn't run it as much as he sometimes does. Like maybe you only get like 35 rushing yards instead of 75 rushing yards tonight. So Lamar in my lineup. And then the matchup is actually really good for Tua, but Tua could suffer a concussion and not finish the game. There's always that risk with Tua. He could also throw 4 interceptions. Last week he did throw 4 touchdowns against the Falcons, and that was a much more difficult matchup. But in general, I just don't really trust Tua in my lineup. Their offense is somewhat underrated. It's actually better than I give it credit for sometimes, but it just feels gross. And you know the Ravens are hungry for wins. Like if this goes badly, if it goes downhill, it's going to be terrible. Like the floor doesn't exist with Tua. So there is some upside this week. I could see him have a decent game, but he's not someone I want to bet on. At QB 21, I'll fade him, definitely bench him. I would rather go Geno Smith in a top 3 matchup against the Jaguars. To bench him for Geno is saying a lot. So not going to trust Tua, but obviously start Lamar Jackson. That was kind of a no-brainer. And then at wide receiver, I think you are starting Zay Flowers. Zay Flowers is my wide receiver 20, and I do consider him relatively a must start. If you're in the top 25 at receiver, odds are you'll at least factor in at flex. Maybe you have the depth and you have a really solid receiving core where you just don't have the space. But when Flowers has a good game, he has an elite performance. And while sometimes he shits the bed with less than 20 yards, I don't envision that tonight. The Dolphins actually have a good fantasy defense. They actually lock up receivers pretty well. They're just so bad everywhere else that it's easy to just lean on the run when you're winning against Miami. So game script, I think, is the only red flag for Flowers. But if you told me that Lamar throws for like 4 touchdowns tonight, wouldn't be shocked. And one of them probably goes to Flowers. And when he has a good game, he usually goes over like 80 plus yards. He's gone over 100 many times. So the ceiling is elite with Flowers. There's always a bit of risk, but in this matchup, I see less of it. I would consider him a top 20 play. I would be starting Zay Flowers tonight. However, I don't feel confident enough to start Rashad Bateman. I actually have him cropped out. He's my wide receiver 55. I could understand the logic for starting Rashad Bateman, but it just feels too risky. It doesn't feel like a wise call because it can easily pivot to random players in Baltimore. Like one week, you might get a great game from Rashad Bateman, and then the next week, he might have like one target and not even catch it. You could easily get a bagel from Rashad Bateman. So I worry about that. I don't think it's worth it. There's a lot of other good names, and Bateman is pretty low on my radar. So not a player I don't even think you have to roster, honestly. But in the top 60, I suppose if you're super desperate, maybe you could do better. But if in DFS, I understand the logic of drafting Rashad Bateman, but not going to start him. Only going to start Zay Flowers. And then when it comes to the Dolphins side of the ball, it's a little bit similar, but I actually feel a little bit better about the backup. I think you're 100% starting Jalen Waddle. We mentioned it earlier in the injury report. The depth chart is just kind of depleted, and there are very few other threats for targets. So Waddle is my wide receiver 17. I'd rather go Waddle tonight than Zay Flowers. I think the volume will be locked up, and I have seen multiple games recently with him getting 90 plus yards since Tyreek went down. That Browns game with the wind in Cleveland, that one doesn't count. But otherwise, he's consistently giving you like 6 catches for 90 plus yards in 2 of the last 3 games. So I do trust Waddle. The touchdown is a bit of a 50-50 coin flip. I'm not guaranteeing a touchdown, but I think on volume and yardage alone, you'll get a bust-proof game from Jalen Waddle. I would trust him in my lineup, top 20 for sure, and I do think he's more valuable tonight than Zay Flowers. So start Jalen Waddle, but a player I actually want to rank higher is Malik Washington. I guess I have him at 46, not 47, but it's kind of the same thing. Him and Parker Washington are back-to-back, and there's also a chance that Brian Thomas Jr. doesn't play. So probably Parker Washington will go above him by the end of the weekend, but Malik Washington kind of just is outside of my start consideration. Like the cutoff point I have this week is Trey Tucker at 36 against the Jaguars, a good matchup for him. But then there's a whole tier behind that cutoff point before I even get to the tier that Malik Washington is in. So I think there's actually a very good shot for him to give you like 13 points. If you told me Malik gives you like 45 yards and a touchdown on like 3-5 catches, something like that, would not be surprised at all. And I could easily see a path where that leads to like 13.6, 13.8 fantasy points. I think he actually has some legit value, but it's very touchdown dependent. It's not a guarantee, and maybe the Ravens defense steps up, so I would probably just avoid it. But I would roster Malik Washington just for the sake of depth if I was in a deeper league. I have him top 50 this week. I like the matchup a lot, and in good spots like this, the touchdown isn't the worst bet you could make. So I kind of want to rank him top 40 and tell you to flex him, but look at the names I have above him. Like Kamari DK had 8 targets last week, 7 catches. The number 1 receiver in Tennessee, probably more valuable than the number 2 in Miami. Then I have Alec Pierce, a really good deep threat, and the Steelers have given up a shit ton of yards this season, so I would prefer to take a shot on Alec Pierce. Also, Troy Franklin, who had 2 touchdowns last week. Love Troy Franklin, but the matchup is tough. Quentin Johnston, hyper boom bust. You could get a bagel, but also 20 points. Same argument with Jamison Williams. And then Addison could be elite, but trusting J.J. McCarthy is tough. Myers gets healthy, but Bowers comes back and has been shit without Bowers, so Myers is tough. And then DJ Moore's not practicing. That's kind of a tough call, but I definitely trust DJ Moore more than Malik Washington. And then Keon Coleman also in that tier, like you're hoping for a shootout in that game. So the names above Malik Washington that I'm also benching aren't like locks in your lineup. I could argue that Malik Washington is actually better than all of them this week. So I could tell you Malik Washington is like just as valuable as Kayshon Boutte this week and tell you to flex him. But based on the depth elsewhere and maybe like higher upside, I would probably just bench Malik Washington. But long story short, I think he does have value, and I would consider him off the waiver wire as a decent pickup. But once Darren Waller comes back, he'll lose all value. For now, he does have some relevance, but not much. Anyways, the backup receivers in this game, I'm not really interested in though, but I could see a random touchdown, especially for a guy like DeAndre Hopkins. When Hopkins has been involved this season, it's been a 30-yard touchdown that's hit. Lamar likes to throw it deep, and it looks like DeAndre Hopkins is the guy that they look to in that regard. So Hopkins, interesting in DFS, but all or nothing type of player. He might have one catch for a 40-yard touchdown, and then without it, you get a bagel. So not going to trust him. Also not going to trust Nick Westbrook-Akine, I'd much rather go Malik Washington. But maybe one of these guys does play spoiler in fantasy tonight. Let's move on, though, to a different position. Let's talk about the tight ends. And in Baltimore, I think I am going to start Mark Andrews. I trust him as long as Lamar is the quarterback. I would expect a touchdown. And the Dolphins matchup isn't that bad. They give up a lot of volume to the position overall. So I don't know if the yardage will be there. Andrews isn't rarely going over 40 yards these days, but touchdowns are often his calling card, and I would probably expect a touchdown tonight. So in the top 10, I am telling you to start Mark Andrews, but if you recently picked up Oronde Gadsden, I'd rather go with Gadsden, and then otherwise everybody else is a player you would have drafted other than Andrews. So I would start him, but on the lower end of the top 10, and then unranked, unpictured would be Isaiah Likely, who I do not have on the screen, but he's my tight end 28. I could see him overtake Andrews at some point. The snap percentage is going up, but the volume is still not there, so can't start Likely yet. But an elite handcuff at tight end, I doubt you're rostering him, though. Very unlikely. In terms of the Dolphins tight end, though, without Darren Waller, I have no interest in Tanner Conner. So I did not rank Connor inside my top 30. He's definitely not on my radar. And if he has a good game, I'm willing to be wrong about that. But I just wouldn't bet on him. I just do not trust Tanner Conner. So not going to start him. Going to start Andrews, though. And then let's move on to defense, where I think I'd be willing to gamble on Baltimore. It's not the safest bet. I could see the Ravens defense still suck and Miami at home put up a good fight. I could see Miami score a lot of points. But because you're going up against Tua, you could get 3 interceptions. You genuinely could have that pick 6 potential more than anyone else. So I'm not dying to start the Ravens, but this week the position is really weird and there's not that many good matchups. So just because it's Tua opposite him, I do consider the Ravens defense having some value. But at number 11, I'm not dying to do it, just a flex option. Maybe if you have the Bucks defense and they're on bye, that's a decent fill-in. But the Ravens have offered a lot of negative points this week. The only upside here is the pick 6. Otherwise, you might get screwed with the Ravens. Otherwise, though, I'm definitely not starting the Dolphins. With Lamar Jackson back, they can hang 40 easily. The Dolphins are my second lowest ranked defense this week at 27 with 4 teams on bye. The only one I'd not rather go with would be the Steelers against the Colts. That's the only other scary matchup that's worse than the Dolphins. Otherwise, at kicker, last position to mention, I would consider flexing Tyler Loop. I don't think you have to roster the Ravens kicker, but given the Buccaneers kicker is on bye, maybe you need a backup, and I do consider the Ravens kicker decent. He's somewhat rostered, so I would flex him. I don't have to start him. He's not top 10 for me, but I'm fine if you are starting Tyler Loop. Otherwise, though, I'm not going to start Riley Patterson, definitely dropping him if I have him on the roster. That's it for the individual positions, though. Now let's mention just the players I'm starting. Just to recap, we have Lamar Jackson, obviously, in your lineup tonight. Derrick Henry as well. Same with Devon Achane. All 3 of them are locks in the top 6. Each of them are ranked top 6 at each position. But Jalen Waddle at wide receiver 17. I'm definitely starting Waddle. I'm also starting Zay Flowers at wide receiver 20. I like the upside for both of them. I think both of them will go over 75 yards tonight. I'm also going to start Mark Andrews at tight end 10. He's fine, but kind of capped upside because the yardage rarely goes over 50. The touchdown I think will hit, though, for Andrews. Otherwise, there's only 3 players I would consider flexing, and odds are I'm just going to bench each of them. But these are the 3 players I'm talking about. The kicker for the Ravens, Tyler Loop, is somewhat interesting as a fill-in for someone like Chase McLaughlin. And then the Ravens defense, just because the other options this week suck, I do have as an interesting flex play. But at number 11, not dying to do it. And then lastly, I'm probably benching Malik Washington. I mentioned it to you. But I do consider him an interesting pickup and plug and play. If you're in a very deep format, he probably is already rostered, but he could be valuable tonight. I do think he finds the end zone. I think that's a decent bet. Maybe like a 60%, 65% chance for Malik Washington to score a touchdown. And generally at wide receiver, it's very unlikely for anyone to be over 50%. So that's actually a big endorsement on Malik Washington to say he's pretty likely to score a touchdown. So interesting, but just probably not have the space in your lineup tonight. And then otherwise, I'm benching every other player. Everyone here on the screen is definitely not in my starting lineup, if not just remaining on the wire. Tua, no thank you. Despite some upside last week, I think was kind of a fluke. Not ready to expect that to repeat. 4 touchdowns from Tua. That's the only way he's going to be going over 25 points. Like otherwise, Tua has such a hard cap ceiling. No thanks. Rashad Bateman is interesting, but just too risky for me, so no thanks there. I would also bench DeAndre Hopkins, Justice Hill, likely, and Keaton Mitchell, but I could see some garbage time where all of these names are somewhat involved in the fourth quarter, but odds are it doesn't work out. Only unless Lamar just decides I'm going nuclear would anyone be a safe start. But you can't really accurately predict that. So no thanks with the backups in Baltimore. But the backup running backs in Miami, no thanks with them. Ollie Gordon, Jalen Wright have some value, but behind A-Chain, no thanks. And then I'm not going to test my luck with the Dolphins defense or their kicker. No thank you with them. So that is it for the start-sit decisions. Lastly, I'm going to tell you what I think happens. Final score prediction is the Ravens win. Surprise, surprise. But I do think it might be somewhat close. The Dolphins have actually covered the spread many times this year. They're actually pretty good if you pick them against the spread, but they're definitely losing. There's no chance in hell I would expect the Ravens to lose. And they either win by a bigger blowout and it's like 45-10, or it's a one possession game. And I do think the Dolphins offense can hang their own. The Dolphins don't roll over, and they really beat the Falcons impressively last week. I think they have some confidence. I don't think they're just going to give up against Baltimore. And the Ravens defense has not shown up this season. So I think the Ravens will definitely win, but in the second half, the Dolphins will kind of come back. It's never going to be in question, but I do think it'll be a 7-point game all in all. So I agree with y'all. 85% are taking the Ravens to win tonight. Only 15% clicked the Dolphins, and I think the final score is 34-27 in favor of Baltimore, which means I would hit the over pretty confidently. I think there's not much defense tonight. I think the over is a solid pick. Unless the Ravens defense just really, really shuts them down, I would confidently expect over 50 points. So I'm hitting the over tonight. I'm predicting 61 points in my projection, and then I do technically have the Dolphins covering that 7.5-point line, but I gave you the Dolphins back on Monday in my picks against the spread, and that was because I wasn't sure about Lamar's status. I thought maybe Tyler Huntley could still be the guy. So I'm going to be removing that from the 6 picks. I just want it on the record. I will be swapping out the Dolphins plus 7.5 for Las Vegas plus 3. I'd much rather go Vegas in that one than take the Dolphins, now that I know for sure Lamar will play. But for the sake of the video, I still think it's a one possession 7-point game, 34-27 in favor of Baltimore. But with that out of the way, there's only one other thing to do before I answer your questions, and that is show you my lineup on Underdog tonight. I am an Underdog partner, and so a reminder that new customers can use promo code BLUNT on sign up, and once you play your first 5, you will get $100 in bonus funds deposited in your account to play with for free. That is a pretty sweet deal. I highly recommend it if you're interested. The link is in the description, and follow that. Enter code BLUNT on sign up, and new customers get this promo deal with code BLUNT. If you're interested in how to spend that first $5, this is the lineup I submitted myself, my 5-pick entry. Here it is on the screen. A little zoomed in. Let me minimize that just a little bit. These are the picks I am pretty confident in. I think if there's one automatic, one that's extremely safe, is a absolute lock, it would be Lamar Jackson to throw no interceptions tonight. Last year, Lamar only had 3 interceptions, and this season, the Dolphins have only caught 1 pick all year. I cannot envision that Lamar Jackson will throw an interception tonight. If he does, I will be very upset. I think this is the most automatic pick you can find. The price discount, though, on this is pretty significant. You only get 70% of the return, so it takes off 30% of your winnings if you do assign Lamar Jackson to this pick. So that's why the prize is so low. Usually a 5-pick entry that's also boosted by 30% is going to be way more than 166. But because Lamar is such a guarantee to do this, it does kind of cap the upside in terms of payout. But let's play it safe. Let's get at least one that's a guarantee. And then I also think Derrick Henry is going over 100 yards tonight. So I'm not going to make it harder. The projection is 88.5. So let's just hit the higher on the baseline underdog projection. They want you to bump it up to 100. I'm just going to stick with 88. And I think 90 is a basic lock. The Dolphins give up 130 rushing yards per game every single week on average. And in general, it's like 190 total yards to the position. So Henry's going to be great tonight. He doesn't catch many passes. I think he will very likely go over 100 rushing yards. There will be at least one big likely house call that gains like 30, 40 yards on just one play. So love Derrick Henry to hit the higher. And then otherwise, the Dolphins, I mentioned it earlier, have a very predictable offense. So the most likely outcome would be Devon Achane scoring a touchdown. I love the Achane touchdown. That's basically a lock in my opinion. He hasn't been giving you like 6 automatic catches all the time, so I'd rather avoid his receiving projections. I think a touchdown is so guaranteed because both Tyreek Hill and Darren Waller are both on IR. The ball can only go to so many people. So Achane scores a touchdown. That feels like a lock. And then Waddle has gone over 90 yards in 2 of the last 3 games. And the only time that hasn't happened was when it was super windy in Cleveland. This game is in Miami. Waddle is the go-to target. He will crush this. I think 75 yards is a safe pick, but I'm just going to keep it safe, stick with the original underdog line, and take higher 65.5 receiving yards. I think Waddle will hit 70 tonight. Lastly, this one is a bit of a gamble. This is the riskiest one of them all. But I hyped up Malik Washington earlier, and I told you he scored last week. The odds this week are pretty good. The Ravens secondary does not scare me whatsoever. So I feel pretty good about all 5 of these. Give me the Malik Washington touchdown tonight, and that's the one that kind of compensates for the risk of Lamar Jackson. This one takes away 30%. This one adds 45% last I checked. So I do like pairing a risky Malik Washington touchdown with a very safe Lamar Jackson no interception. But because I feel like the Lamar pick is actually so locked in, I have a second entry that I would like to show you. So these are the 5 picks, $5 for 166 with a 30% profit boost. I think that's a very decent proposition tonight. I like this lineup a lot, to be honest with you. I feel like the only risky one is Malik Washington, but I am going a little bit riskier. I have one other lineup that goes one more pick further. This one includes Mark Andrews. I'm going to go with 2 lineups tonight, and one of them is a little bit more indulgent. Give me the Mark Andrews projection to hit the higher on 29.5 receiving yards. I think Andrews can hit 30. As long as Lamar is the quarterback, he should get enough volume where 30 will happen. So the Dolphins have given up about 65 yards per game to the position, and in the last 5 games, it's down to about 50 yards. But Andrews doesn't really compete with Likely that much at this point in time. I think Andrews will exceed 30 tonight. So by adding that 6th pick, my $5 entry now goes up to $339, and an extra $160 is worth it in my opinion for just one more pick that makes it more difficult. I do have a 40% profit boost on this one, so it is Boosttober. Get those tokens in while you can, and I'm really hopeful all 6 hit, but if there's one that I'm worried about the most, it would be Mark Andrews, 30 receiving yards. That and the Malik Washington line, I think, are the riskiest ones. Then I would say Jalen Waddle is a little risky. Same with Achane. But the ones I think are locks are Derrick Henry and Lamar Jackson. So those are my lineups tonight. That is it for this video. And a reminder, if you are a new customer, if you're interested in tailing these picks, new customers on sign up using promo code BLUNT, play $5 and get $100 in bonus funds when you sign up using code BLUNT. That is a good deal for new customers. Use the link in the description if you are interested. So that is it for the main broadcast. Let me pivot to the single shot. Let me get the live chat up, and I will answer y'all's questions now that I'm done with the main broadcast. So that was fun. I had a good time making this. I'm excited for that pick'em tonight. The over-unders on Underdog. I'm really hopeful I make some money tonight. I feel good on all that. Anyways, let me get this set up. I just need a minute to get the filter on so I can put your questions on the screen. Okay. Let's end the poll. It's been up for 30 minutes, and I doubt it's going to be changing very soon. So, looks like 77% is on the Ravens covering tonight, and that's not a shocker. I would assume y'all would expect the Ravens to get it done. So let's get rid of that. Not a shocker at all. And then I'll get rid of my pinned message, and now I can pick up y'all's questions on the screen. Okay. Sorry for the delay. Soul Pancakes with the first comment says, Ravens winning today. I took the underdog last week, and the Vikings shit the bed. No way I'm taking the underdog now. Vegas caught on to us betting on the underdog. Yeah, I feel like I'm starting to pick up on like what Vegas assumes you're going to do, and then just trying to make it as hard as possible where you're still probably not going to take the underdog in some of these blowouts, but some of them will be closer than you think. It's been weird against the spread. I'm not very good in general. I'm like a 500 better against the spread. I don't really recommend following my against the spread recommendations. But Cliff G says, happy Halloween, amigo. Happy Halloween, my friend. Welcome in. Kusky says, Brock Bowers or Kittle this week. I'm going Bowers. I'm optimistic about Kittle getting Brock Purdy back, but Kittle was injured. Kittle is older, and so is Brock Bowers, but Bowers much younger, and Bowers has had like more time to recover. I think off the bye, Bowers will be fine. The brace is going to be off. Bowers gets a much better matchup. In my opinion, I would go Brock Bowers. He's my tight end one, but for you to have both Bowers and Kittle, good for you, man. That must be a thin league. I can't imagine that's not like a 8-team league. If you have Bowers and Kittle in 10-team, that's pretty dope. Soul Pancake says, I also have Henry on my roster, and I'm feeling confident in starting him. Should I start Higgins against the Bears next Sunday? As long as it's Derrick Henry, I would start him. But Hunter Henry has a very bad matchup this week. I would not be starting Hunter Henry. However, should you start Higgins against the Bears? Only if Flacco plays. There's a chance that Flacco doesn't suit up. He was banged up in practice, and I heard that he was available today, but I don't think he practiced yesterday. There's actually a shot that we get Jake Browning again. If we get Browning, then fuck that. No way I'm starting T. Higgins with Jake Browning. But Albie says, good afternoon. Good afternoon, my man. Nice to see you again. It's been a while. But Jamie says, bonne soirée. Welcome in. Hit that like button. Yes, indeed, hit that like button. I would appreciate some likes on the video. But Soul Pancakes has definitely faded Tua on my bets. No way Tua's past 200 plus. What's crazy is how the Dolphins played last week. Like last week's Dolphins-Falcons game was such a shocker from the standpoint of the Dolphins. Like their defense never plays well. And then their defense sucks generally. They completely shut down the Falcons. And then Tua threw 4 touchdowns on a good defense. The Falcons defense wasn't injured, and they looked like shit. Last week was so weird for the Dolphins. But anyways, Albie says, wait till you hear about this trade I pulled off. I traded Dowdle and Evans, pre-concussion / collarbone, and Shakir for Jamar Chase and Derrick Henry. You are just here to brag, Albie. That's a good trade, man. I can understand why somebody maybe felt desperate enough, but shit. To give up Jamar Chase for Evans and Shakir, and then Derrick Henry for Dowdle. Wow. Good trade, man. Good job. Yeah. No, there was a point when Dowdle had just like so much value. There was an interesting trade in our subscriber league that involved Dowdle and Lamar Jackson a few weeks ago to a team that's like 1-5 at the time, and they needed running back so desperately. And that team cleaned up getting Lamar Jackson. But Izzy Perez says, thanks for the context. Full PPR. Keenan Allen or Travis Hunter for the flex, and should I drop Jordan Mason for Kareem Hunt? At this moment in time, I would go Keenan Allen. However, if you tell me that Brian Thomas Jr. does not come out of his shoulder sling, he had like his arm wrapped up in practice in like a harness. So that's really not a good sign for Brian Thomas Jr. I would go Travis Hunter if BTJ does not play. But at this point in time, I'd rather go Keenan Allen. But otherwise, should I drop Jordan Mason for Kareem Hunt? Maybe. There's some questionable status on Isaiah Pacheco at the moment, but Jordan Mason doesn't feel like a guy I want to be dropping. Mason, I'd rather hold on to. I imagine you have somebody else you can drop other than Mason, but if that's really the only option, then I guess. But it's a lateral move. It's not a big upgrade. It's a very risky play. Given the Chiefs backfield is kind of nuts. But Kareem Hunt this week probably has more value because of Pacheco's questionable status at the moment. I'm not sure if Pacheco was limited or just didn't practice yesterday. I would have to check up on the injury report. Let me pull that up real quick. Let me check on that. Give me a second. FYI, I'm only going to be on here until 4 p.m. I'm playing golf this evening, and I am only going to stay on the live for another 25 minutes. I'm going to sign off at 4 p.m., and I am on the West Coast, so only less than a half hour remains of this live stream. So if you want your questions answered, make sure you get those in. And yeah, I'm checking the injury report. Isaiah Pacheco did not practice today and did not practice yesterday either, dealing with a knee injury. So yeah, at this point in time, then yes, I would rather have Kareem Hunt. But I could easily see this backfiring, and like tomorrow Pacheco practices, and then rest of season Mason is way more valuable than Kareem Hunt. So like I said, a lateral move at best, but this week Kareem Hunt probably has higher upside. Hippo says I traded for Derrick Henry. Games like this are why I'm tied for first in my league, facing the other top team, needing to drop a 40 burger. I don't know if you need 40, but he should have a good game. Should go over 100 yards for sure. Jonathan Cooper says pick 3 non-PPR, Bijan, Chase Brown, Vidal, and Kyron. We are benching Chase Brown this week. We are starting Vidal against the Titans. 100%. The Titans are an elite matchup. They've given up a shit ton of touchdowns. I believe the most rushing touchdowns among any team in the NFL. Let me pull this up and be accurate about it. The Tennessee Titans are the second best running back matchup this season. And in every game they've surrendered at least one rushing touchdown. They've given up 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 rushing touchdowns this year and 2 receiving touchdowns. 13 touchdowns total to the running back position against Tennessee. A touchdown for Kimani Vidal is an absolute lock this week. I am 100% going Kimani Vidal over Chase Brown. Against Chicago, that is my pick. I'm not going to be benching Bijan. That's obvious. Last week, not going to happen again. And then Kyron Williams gets a really good matchup against the Saints. I would be starting Kyron Williams for sure. Kyron should probably score a touchdown. The volume is pretty locked in. And the Saints give up a decent amount of yardage. I would go Kyron Williams, Vidal, and Bijan. Cole Barnes says, in a chopped league, PPR, Rome, or Waddle tonight. I'm going to go Rome. Rome is not practicing either. What's the deal on Rome? Let me check the injury report in Chicago. Rome Odunze was a limited participant in Thursday's practice this week. If Rome Odunze was limited, I will still stick with Rome Odunze. I want to start Waddle. I do rank him top 20, but I do have Rome higher. And although Rome didn't practice yesterday, he was limited today. I would assume he's available on Sunday. Give me Rome Odunze over Jalen Waddle. I think a touchdown against the Bengals is more likely for Rome than a touchdown for Waddle against the Ravens. But the Hippo says, what's your opinion on Kelsey rest of season? Do you think last week was a fluke, or will he remain a tight end 1 this year? I think he'll be hovering around tight end 8 and tight end 12. I don't think he's an elite tight end anymore, but like last week, there are still instances where he can play well. In good matchups, I think he'll be really, really dominant, and it's all going to come down to touchdowns. But in general, I would expect around 50 to 60 yards per week from Kelsey. I think the floor is very high, very safe with Kelsey. And so for that reason, he's likely a tight end 1. He's a low end tight end 1. And if you wanted to stream the position, I think there's people you could get off the waiver wire in random weeks that are going to be more valuable than Kelsey. But he's not someone I would drop. So with that in mind, yes, he's a tight end 1, but he's like a tight end. He's like the tight end 9 on the season. That's where I'd probably rank him. Behind Oronde Gadsden, and in the same vein as like Sam Laporta. But any given week, you might get 80 yards and a touchdown. You also might get like 30 yards and no touchdown. But in general, I would expect about 5 catches per game from Kelsey. So a fine tight end to roster, but not top 5. Not anymore. Mango Hapchin. Mango is asking, do you think Josh Jacobs will outscore Kimani Vidal on Sunday full PPR? That's a close call. I would still start Jacobs. The name value is definitely worth it, but Jacobs isn't like 100% right now. And if Emmanuel Wilson's workload last week is legit, then I might project more touches for Kimani this week because the Chargers backfield is just so banged up beyond Kimani Vidal. But Jacobs was limited in practice this week with a calf injury. And if you were going to ask me, are you benching Jacobs for Kimani? I don't think I would do it. But because you're in full PPR, it's a little bit more interesting. However, I don't see that Chargers game as a heavy check down game script for Kimani. I see it more as like a lot of rushing attempts for Kimani. So I would still go Josh Jacobs. But the matchup for Kimani Vidal is so good, I would want to get him in my lineup as a flex play. I think Kimani is a top 15 running back this week, but Jacobs is in my top 10. So I would still go Jacobs over Kimani Vidal. Jamie says, I just sold Gadsden for a 2027 first round pick. Great deal since I got him late 4th or off waivers after the rookie draft. Yeah, that's a good value. First round pick for Gadsden. I can't imagine he stays as elite all year. That sounds like a good deal. But I don't play Dynasty. I don't know for sure. Gadsden, I am high on. Not going to lie. But A+ says stream a tight end, Theo or Juwan Johnson or Ingram. This week, I'm going Theo Johnson. I like the matchup for Theo Johnson. I like his trends of like scoring a touchdown every other game, because if that continues, then last week he didn't score. This week he will. And given they lost Cam Scatterbo, he's even more likely to get the ball in the red zone. Even more now. So I like Theo Johnson this week. I prefer him well over Juwan Johnson. Juwan gets a terrible matchup this week. And then Ingram is a relative floor play generally. Ingram is safer for like 5 points, but against the Texans, it's not a good matchup. So I'd be benching Ingram for sure for the upside of Theo Johnson. Give me Theo Johnson among these 3. But Michael O'Day says, good afternoon. Welcome in, Michael. Nice to see you. And then The Hippo says, sorry, I don't need a 40 burger, but would like one because it would be sweet. It would be sweet. He has the 6th best points, but is tied for the best record. I am kind of in the same situation in the subscriber league. Like, I'm not in the top 2, but I probably don't deserve the record I have given my points. I've had a lot of injuries and I've gotten kind of lucky in the scheduling. But I'm 5-3 in the Blunt League, and I should probably be at best like 4-4, maybe even 3-5, given some of my wins. But I've dropped 100 in every game, and there's only one flex in that format, so it's a little bit tricky. I'll show you my subscriber league roster actually right now. Let me pull it up because I've kind of caught up on the questions. But Pastel Froggy says Butte or DK. This question is giving me a good team name idea. Oh my God. I'm definitely much more of an ass man. I'm definitely not the other side. I'm going to go Keishon Butte. This is a good team name. You're making me crack up, bro. Mango Hapkin says, thank you. You pronounced my German handle correctly. You're welcome, bro. Sometimes my bilingual skills come in handy. But okay, what was I doing? Right, we were gonna get my subscriber league team on the screen. We got 15 minutes left before I sign off, so come on in with the questions if you have any. But Pastel, I'm going to go booty on this one. And then what am I looking for? Right. Nope. And we don't need this either. What I am looking for is this. Here we go. This is the roster that I have in the subscriber league. In the Blunt League, this is my team on the screen. Team name 4th and 20. You know me. Speaking of which, it's 3:45. I think it's probably a good time for a smoke break. So actually, let me drop this stem pull again. If you have any weed, you want to smoke with me, go ahead and join me if you'd like. All right. So this is my team. I got good quarterbacks. I got Justin Herbert and Drake May on the bench. I think this week I'm going to go with Herbert against the Titans as opposed to May against the Falcons. Matchup is better for Herbert. But both of them are top 5 in scoring, so I drafted quarterback really well this year. And then there's Bijan, obviously staying in my roster. Last week I'm not too worried about, but a little scary. I have Tajay at the moment, but I could see Travion play well. Ramondre Stevenson didn't practice. Let's check Ramondre's status. What's the deal on the Patriots backfield? Ramondre did not practice Thursday either. Sweet. I mean, I don't want to see somebody go down. I shouldn't say sweet, but as someone who really believed in Travion, this is what I need. So that's what I'm hoping for. Travion to get the job. But ideally, I want him just beat out Ramondre straight up, not for Ramondre to go down. Sadly, Ramondre got hurt. But Froggy, welcome to the blunt rotation, my friend. Welcome in. Thank you for joining. Dope. And anyone who's interested, there is early access to the tight end and defense video that is posted for members only. But welcome to the blunt rotation. Appreciate you joining, my friend. And then I'm probably going to be benching Darnell Mooney. I might pick up someone off the wire, but I'm waiting to see if Christian Kirk is going to be available. I kind of want to start Jalen Knoll instead, but odds are I'm going to be putting, let's just do it now. Let's go Jacoby Myers there and then Travion in the flex. I don't feel too good about Darnell Mooney this week, but let's do that. And then here's my other team. This is a full PPR format. Both teams are in 12-team leagues, and they're both 5-3. I got Jerry's dementia, and I also have both quarterbacks on this one too. I have Herbert and Drake May, and then I have London on IR. I won last week in a close call without him, thankfully, but I got Pollard and Kimani Vidal in the starting lineup. Trust Kimani, but Pollard a bit scary. Then CeeDee Lamb, Josh Downs. Downs is underrated. I got Travis Hunter in the flex. Very excited for him. And then J.K. Dobbins, I'm a bit worried about, but I might swap him for R.J. Harvey. And then I might be dropping Kincaid or the Bucs defense because I have Trey McBride. And if I'm going to activate London, I have too many players otherwise on the bench. So this is my second team. Both are 5-3. They're both in the playoff standings. But at least in the Blunt League, I would like to have more points. Like, let me show you my schedule, how things have gone in the Blunt League. 106 with a win, 97 and a loss, 103 and a loss, 134 and a win. That one was my most impressive game. But then 83 points and a loss in week 5. That was when Bijan was on bye, so that was rough. But then these last 3 weeks, I'm hovering in 100 points, 102 and a win, 100 and a win, 103 and a win. I have gotten lucky with scheduling, but I'm not in charge of that. That's just fucking random. So I should probably be like maybe 3-5, honestly. But in this league, 100 points is usually the minimum you need to win. Sometimes you can lose, obviously, with like 120 or more. But in general, if you score 100, you are still likely to get the win. Less than 100, it's pretty much guaranteed you will lose in this format. So my team has just been injured, but I had a very thin starting roster. That was kind of always my plan. And then I've gotten a bit lucky. But I got Ibuka on bye this week. I have Hampton on IR. If I slot those two guys in my starting lineup, this team is scary. I got Boswell as the kicker. He's fucking dope. Quarterback is great. We got Bijan and hopefully Omarion Hampton. Then Adams and Ibuka, Kittle, and then at flex, I'm hopeful that it's Travion that is really the value rest of season. But yeah, sadly, I don't have Kimani Vidal to handcuff with Hampton. But last week, Tyjae Spears came in clutch for me. Last week, Tyjae gave me 15.7 points. Tyjae was pretty good. But has Harvey been outscoring Pollard weekly? Recently, yes. However, the Texans matchup kind of scares me. The Texans matchup isn't very good, but odds are I'm probably going to start Harvey over Pollard. That is more likely what I will do. I just haven't changed it, but good call. Let's just do that now. I think I'll probably just start both Broncos running backs, but I kind of worry about having both in my lineup. The projection, though, for Harvey is still 3 points less than Pollard. So projection-wise, ESPN wants me to go Pollard. The matchup is easier. The Chargers are middle of the pack. Meanwhile, Houston is bottom 10. Texans are easier to catch the ball on, but not by a lot. Texans are a rough matchup. If you don't get a rushing touchdown against Houston, you're kind of screwed. So in general, I would expect that to go to J.K. Dobbins, but we'll see what happens. Those are my two teams, by the way. And with only 8 minutes left, I'm going to do a underdog draft tonight. We have a $10 entry. Let's see. But Ice Cold Jones, sorry, you have a question. Who should I start in the 2 flex spot? Tracy, QJ, Hunt, Shakir, or Bill? We're going to be benching Quentin Johnston this week. We're also going to bench Bill against Seattle, no thanks. I'm going to start Tyrone Tracy for sure. And then it comes down to Kareem Hunt versus Khalil Shakir. If you tell me that Pacheco doesn't play, I'll go Kareem Hunt. But if not, if Pacheco practices tomorrow, then I'm going to go Khalil Shakir. I think the floor is safer with Shakir, but I think the upside would be higher with Kareem Hunt. So if you just want to play it safe, then start Tracy and Shakir. However, if you tell me Pacheco's inactive, I would go Kareem Hunt instead for that touchdown upside. But I think odds are you're going to be starting Tyrone Tracy for sure, and also Khalil Shakir. I think that's most likely what will happen. Anyways, I'll be signing off in the next 10 minutes. We're going to do a primetime Palooza, and it's going to be one of these Thursday night football options. So which one is the most interesting? We have the $5 1K to first. The tournament has 1,100 people in it. This tournament has 100 people, but the entry fee is $100. I'm not going to do that. My pockets are not that deep to risk it. Then there's the $25 entry, 2K to first, or we can do a $10 entry, 4-person draft, 10K to first. What I'm going to do is I'm going to hop into this $5 one. And if we don't like our team, then I'll do one of the $10 ones. That is the plan. That's what I'll be doing. But the matchups in this are Thursday night and Sunday night. We have the Dolphins and Ravens. So Lamar Jackson, very valuable. And then there's also the Seahawks Commanders game. And I would say an underrated value would be Sam Darnold. I'd actually really like the value on Sam Darnold. I would expect Darnold to be going kind of late. He is going above Tua at least. That makes sense. Pick 13. That's probably fair. Running back, Henry, A-Chain, Sharps, Walker, and Bill. Okay. And then wide receiver, there's JSN, Flowers, Waddle, Debo, Cup, Bateman, Malik Washington. Okay. Got it. Let's get on the clock soon. I can't decide if I like this team, if I'm going to do a second one, or if I hate this team, I'll do a second one. Odds are I'll probably do a second one for $10, but let's do one for $5 as a warm-up. See what it's like, get a view of the board. I have not taken a peek at this, but I have kind of hammered out most of my rankings. I'll be posting running backs and wide receivers, by the way, tomorrow. Stay tuned for that. But how many people are still watching? 14 viewers left. Appreciate y'all for hanging out. And we miss out on Derrick Henry and JSN. Let's just take Lamar. Actually, nah. I'm going to go A-Chain. I think A-Chain might be more valuable than Lamar because I really like the value on Sam Darnold. Daniels is still probably good. And it's possible that this team at 4 passes on Lamar. You know, it's unlikely, but it is possible that they pass. But I really doubt it. I would be kind of surprised if this team passes. I don't want to get stuck with Tua, though. That's mainly just a contrarian play. Oh, they go Debo. Sweet. It worked out. Let's fucking do it. Sweet. Give me A-Chain and Lamar. Hell yeah. It was so worth it. I don't think it's necessary to stack up Lamar with Flowers. I'm surprised that's not what he did. To go Flowers and Debo, that's a bit of a shocker. But I'm just noticing this team doesn't have a badge. Maybe that's a reason why. But sweet. We're rolling with Lamar and A-Chain in the first 2 rounds. I'm very happy with that. Pastel Froggy says DK we're stashing. I would agree. I mean, what's crazy is like all 3 of the Titans receivers last week got 8 targets. But the only one that actually put up like good usage was DK. Like Van Jefferson did nothing. And then Yamanor is kind of doing the same thing every week. Like he gets the volume but doesn't do much with it. DK is at least catching the passes and at least like giving you a good floor. At slot, I think Chimera DK is worth the stash in Tennessee. But last week's matchup was amazing. That's a big reason why. Keep that in mind before you just like lock in DK to your lineup. And at some point, Ridley probably comes back too. So we'll see what happens there. But I'm going to go Mark Andrews. And then I think we're going to go Rashad Bateman. We're obviously not getting Zay Flowers. So let's go like all in on Lamar tonight. And let's go with Bateman. I kind of want to grab Malik Washington more, though. You know what? Yeah, let's do that. I have Malik Washington ranked the highest. I'm going to go with my rankings. Malik Washington is my pick. The Hippo says, if Swift is out, do I start Monungai over Kelsey? Yes. Oh, my God. Monungai would be such a good play this week if he gets the Bengals matchup as the starter. The Bengals matchup is so effing good. Yes, but I expect Swift to suit up. I think Swift will be fine. Let me look at their depth chart. Chicago Bears. Swift did not practice on Thursday. Okay, that's the first time he's missed 2 practices in a row. But yeah, Monungai going to have a great game against the Bengals. Even as the backup, I think Monungai has a lot of value. I need another receiver. And Bateman did get taken. So I could go with like DeAndre Hopkins. But the thing about Hopkins is he doesn't get the volume. I'm not going to go Hopkins. Instead, I could see Kupp having a good game. But in general, if you want the upside in Seattle, you want to go Torrey Horton. So I'm going to scroll down. Is there anyone that piques my interest at all? No. But I actually like AJ Barner a lot this week. We're going to go double tight end and grab AJ Barner. Snipe that team that doesn't have a tight end yet. That's mean. But let's do it. And then my next pick will be Torrey Horton, hopefully. But Bruce Leroy says flex Vidal or Pickens. Also for tight end, Theo Johnson, Ertz, or Pitts. We're going to flex... Shit. Flex Vidal. Flex Kimani. Also for tight end, Theo Johnson, Ertz, or Pitts. We're going... Theo Johnson. Actually, no. We're going Zach Ertz. We're going Zach Ertz. So I'm flexing Kimani Vidal and I'm starting Zach Ertz. And then here we're going Torrey Horton. All right, that's the team. Let's show you the board in totality. In pick 3, I go A-Chain and get Lamar. That is fucking dope. I'm so happy I went A-Chain instead of Lamar because there's no way that team would have passed on A-Chain. But for them to pass on Lamar, like so fucking clutch. Sweet. Andrews for the stack. Malik Washington hoping for the touchdown. AJ Barner for the sneaky double tight end. And then Torrey Horton also hoping for a touchdown. I like this roster quite a bit. I like this a lot. Could have gone Isaiah Likely, but oh no, he was already taken above AJ Barner. All right. The team at 4 goes Flowers, Debo, JCM, Darnold, Kupp, and Arroyo. Not my favorite approach. They should have taken Lamar. Team 2 goes JSN, Waddle at receiver. That's going to be tough to beat. But Walker and Justice Hill, not scary too much. Tua and Ertz. Ertz is decent, but whatever. And then Jaden Daniels with only a Luke McCaffrey stack. Meanwhile, they have Derrick Henry, Zach Charbonnet. That could be really good. And then Bateman, if he is the guy you need, he could go nuclear. And then same with Likely, but odds are Likely just doesn't get the volume. I'd still rather go Andrews than Likely, but I assume Swift will play, but he doesn't normally miss two practices. That's the big concern. For him to miss 2 is not good. But then Mango says, here's a question in the flex. ETN, Monty, Debo, or Jordan Addison? We're going to go Debo Samuel there. I'm worried about his heel injury, but he's now full in practice. But it's either Debo or ETN for sure. Full PPR, I think I'd go Debo. But I could see ETN having a little more value. Against Las Vegas, it's pretty tempting. But I think Debo in full PPR is a little better. Siggy says, do I start Jalen Waddle or Pittman? Half PPR? Give me Michael Pittman. I believe I'd prefer Michael Pittman this week. I will know that for sure tomorrow. But yes, I have Pittman at 16 and Waddle at 17. I'm going Pittman over Waddle. Better matchup for Pittman. And then Swift, for some reason, gets better as the season goes on, and he's banged up a little. That's interesting. Mango says, thank you. You're welcome, bro. And then I'm going to do one last one, and then I'm going to have to go. I will sign out after this second draft. I liked how that one went so much. I'm going to enter this Primetime Palooza with a shot at 10K. Let's do it. I'm feeling bold. One slot left. It is taken. And let's rip the pipe. We got pick 2. We got pick 2 in this. All right. Pastel, thank you for the good luck charm, bro. Thank you very much. Given how I got Lamar, let's pivot off of Lamar. He is coming off the hammy. Let's go in a different direction. Dev is here. What's up, Dev? How you doing, bro? All right. In the 2 slot, that team at 4, also no badge, but I believe these are different people than last one we were in. I'm hoping to get JSN. I would really love the Sam Darnold stack in this. I think Darnold could be really good this week. Please give me JSN. If they time out, then they'll take JSN. Yep, that's what happens. Bummer. That is unfortunate, but in this one, I'll go with Derrick Henry. I'll grab Derrick Henry. Let's do that. Feels worthy of a top 3 pick. I technically have A-Chain ranked higher, but I see in best ball, I see higher upside this week for Derrick Henry. Like if he has a monster game, it'll be truly elite. Truly elite. And I want this one to be different than my last one, so good to know that, like, I'm also never going to get Lamar at 7. To get him at 6 was a big shocker. To get him at 7 is kind of crazy. Appreciate you, Dev. Thank you for the positive vibes. I hope so, too. Oh, Darnold goes at 4. Damn. All right, so then Jaden Daniels is going to be our guy here. I'm not going to risk winding up with Tua. Like, maybe Tua has that amazing game like last week, but I really doubt it. I think he'll be fine, but not as good as Jaden Daniels. But I would have assumed they would have taken Jaden Daniels above who I got. All right, I'm not going to play games. Let's take him. Also, that team already has a wide receiver, so odds are I still get a decent one around this turn. There's 3 receivers there on the top of ADP that I'd be fine taking. Waddle was one of them. Flowers was the other, but Debo gives me the stack. Very happy to have Debo. Let's go. Another stack, I think Jalen Lane is interesting. I think I'd rather go Jalen Lane at this point than Luke McCaffrey. I think I've seen enough from Jalen Lane above the other guys to prefer him, but it's so close. It's pretty negligible. I'd rather just grab Zach Ertz. That's probably what I'll do. But let's look at the other receivers for me to grab. There's Kupp, Bateman, Malik Washington, Luke McCaffrey. I do like Malik Washington. I will say, that was one pick I made in the last one that I really liked a lot. Ertz goes to the team with Darnold. I would have assumed they'd set up the A.J. Barner stack, but that's fine. I'll go for A.J. Barner. Good matchup for Barner against what's his face. But Charbonnet's available. Ooh, that's pretty tempting. Not gonna lie. The team after me has 3 receivers, so let's move off of receiver. They just can't draft one. And I will take Charbonnet. The Derrick Henry Charbonnet stack. We also get Charb's well past ADP. He goes at pick 8. That's pretty dope. Like at this point in time, I'd rather have Charbonnet than Walker's. Bill is a big liability. So, wow, I got a great value here on Charbonnet. That's dope. But I'm still in the market for a Malik Washington, A.J. Barner. I like them. I'm not ready to endorse Likely, but he could have a good game. I could see it work out. McNichols is a little interesting. Had 5 catches for 64 yards last week. But I always like Torrey Horton. My preference, though, here is Malik Washington. My highest ranked, I need a receiver. We at least need 2, and then I can do whatever I want for the flex option in round 6. Give me Malik Washington. Let's go. I like his touchdown odds, and he's by far the best pick left on the board, in my opinion. It's interesting how these last 2 teams faded wide receiver and are stuck in this situation. Like, this team has to go with 2 receivers. They go Bateman. I guess I understand. Oh, I'm probably getting sniped on Torrey Horton, though. Oh, he takes Hopkins. Doesn't get the Darnold stack. That feels insane. To grab Darnold at 4 and only stack him up with Walker, who doesn't really catch passes. Like, that's strange. Chris Moore goes, sweet. We get our guy. We are going Torrey Horton. Oh, okay, never mind. I need tight end. Really? Oh, I thought I did take tight end. Whoops. Okay. All right, we're going Elijah Arroyo. Love the matchup for the tight end in Seattle. And then we faded that position heavily. I forgot I need a tight end. Okay, now I don't like this team as much. But if you told me Barner doesn't get the job done and off the bye the rookie does step up, I could see that. And I love the matchup here. It's all going to come down to touchdowns. I'd rather go Barner personally, but we went Charbonnet instead, and I'd much rather have Charbonnet than Barner. So it worked out. It's fine. But, yeah, I did need tight end there. Forgot about that. That's fine. The team is good, but I preferred our first one. I thought the first one was better. Me too, Albie. Me too. That's the... We got to stay on brand. We got to find a way to kind of mess one of these drafts up. That's usually we have a very solid draft, and there's one round that's kind of just really bad. But Dev says I'm Malik Washington stan. Dude's a baller. I really loved him coming out of college. I thought he would have gone higher in the draft in the 7th round, but that draft was loaded with wide receiver talent. It was kind of crazy how far he fell, and like justifiably so. But yeah, I think he could have a lot of value rest of the season. I'm surprised more people didn't pick him up, but I acknowledge I didn't do that in the subscriber league myself. And I do have him ranked higher than Darnell Mooney this week. So I maybe should have done that, given I have Mooney on that roster. Anyways, we are done. I got to go to the golf course. Got to leave in the next 5-10 minutes. So that's it for me. Let me sign off properly. I appreciate y'all for hanging out. And it's been fun. If you're hopping in late, go ahead and rewind the video, and you can find all the start-sit decisions for tonight's game. Peace out. Hope you have a good one, and I'll see you tomorrow with running back and wide receiver rankings. Peace out. Goodbye.